This is another developing immigration story involving a refugee who spent nearly his entire life in the United States, only to be deported decades later for a crime committed many years earlier. This report reflects verified reporting on multiple Cambodian-American deportation cases documented by reliable U.S. news organizations rather than a single named individual. Today, we are reporting on a Cambodian-American refugee who arrived in the U.S. as a child, grew up American, and was later deported to Cambodia, a country he barely knew, under U.S. immigration enforcement. Like many Cambodian refugees, he came to the United States in the late 1970s and early 1980s after his family fled the Khmer Rouge genocide. He was resettled legally, attended American schools, learned English, and built his life in the U.S. For decades, America was the only home he knew. He became a lawful permanent resident, but never obtained U.S. citizenship, something that would later change the course of his life. Years later, he was convicted of a criminal offense. According to court and immigration records cited by nonprofit and investigative news outlets, the conviction occurred more than 20 years before his deportation. After serving his sentence and completing probation, he returned to his community, rebuilt his life, and lived for years without incident. However, under U.S. immigration law, that conviction made him deportable, even decades later. In the late 2010s and early 2020s, immigration authorities reopened thousands of old cases involving Southeast Asian refugees with past convictions. Cambodia, which had previously resisted accepting deportees, signed agreements allowing the United States to resume removals. As a result, refugees who had lived in the U.S. for most of their lives were suddenly detained and deported. According to reporting from outlets such as Sahan Journal, the Marshall Project, and regional U.S. newspapers, Cambodian-American deportees were taken into ICE custody and sent to Cambodia, a country many had not lived in since early childhood. Many did not speak Khmer fluently, had no employment prospects, and had little to no family support upon arrival. Life after deportation has been extremely difficult. Journalists documenting deportations to Cambodia report that many deportees struggle with housing instability, unemployment, and social isolation. Without strong language skills or cultural familiarity, deportees often rely on informal networks or humanitarian organizations just to survive. Some live in poverty, while others face discrimination as outsiders in a country they are expected to call home. Meanwhile, families remain in the United States. In many cases like this, deported refugees leave behind spouses, children, and extended family members. Advocacy groups say family separation is one of the most devastating consequences of these deportations, particularly when children are involved. U.S.-born children often grow up without a parent physically present, maintaining relationships only through phone calls or video chats, if at all. What makes cases like these especially controversial is that the individuals were admitted to the United States as refugees, often as children, because the U.S. government determined they could not safely remain in their home countries. Decades later, those same individuals are deported based on laws that treat old criminal convictions as grounds for permanent removal, regardless of rehabilitation or family ties. According to immigration experts cited in national reporting, lawful permanent residents are uniquely vulnerable because they do not have the same protections as U.S. citizens. A single conviction, even a nonviolent one, can trigger mandatory deportation, and once removed, there are very limited legal pathways for return. Advocacy organizations across the United States continue to push for reforms that would allow immigration judges more discretion in cases involving long-term residents, refugees, and parents of U.S. citizen children. So far, those efforts have resulted in limited changes, and deportations of Southeast Asian refugees continue. As of the most recent reporting, Cambodian-American deportees affected by these policies remain in Cambodia. There has been no confirmed legal reversal for these cases and no public announcement allowing their return to the United States. Like the case of Mayang, these stories have become part of a broader pattern affecting thousands of Southeast Asian Americans who arrived legally as refugees but were later deported after old convictions resurfaced. These cases continue to raise difficult questions about how the U.S. immigration system balances punishment, rehabilitation, and family unity, and whether deportation decades after a sentence has been served should result in permanent exile. This story continues to develop, and updates will be reported as new, verified information becomes available.